Good afternoon, everybody. Matthew and Meredith here with Geek Insider and a special episode of Geek Speak, maybe a launch of Freaks and Geeks, or Freaky and Geeky. That's what it was. I'm going to be doing a live show every Wednesday, and just decided that we would start off with today. We had actually kind of done a show yesterday on this topic, but with having to edit it and everything, it was going to be a few days before it got out. And so I wanted to just do something live today. And so we are actually on our Facebook, we're on our YouTube, on both Google and Facebook. And then this will be rebroadcast later on our podcast. And the whole reason for the show is, folks, is this stuff is getting kind of real, the COVID stuff. And I know you're getting hit with it left, right, and center. Everywhere you turn, there's COVID this, COVID that. Well, for the last few days, my wife, Brenda, has been experiencing some health issues. And at first we thought it was just asthma and all of this stuff. But she called her doctor. And Meredith, you've felt under the weather somewhat over the last week or two, and then I would get that way. And of course, the first thing that pops in your head is COVID. Is it COVID? And
yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's I know my body. So for me, it's like COVID's in the back of my head. Don't get me wrong. Every time I sneeze or cough or I feel itchy and things like that. And then I'm like, it's allergy season. The magnolias are blooming, the lilies, I am allergic to them. So whenever I'm near them and I smell the perfume, I call it perfume fuckery, excuse the language. I know it's in the afternoon, but I can't stand it. And so for me, I know it's allergies because that's how my body feels. But when it comes to you and your wife have been having other symptoms. So I'll give it back to you.
Well, yeah, and it started with just congestion, a little bit of coughing, and she she has asthma, she has allergies, and so we just blew it off at first, and the sinuses, and then I was having sinus issues again, thought it was just allergies, and had diarrhea a couple times, not today, but the last few days. But anyway. So Brenda starts spiking a fever day before yesterday. Not real high, just low 99, 99.4, 99.7. But what was really strange, well, I'll get to the strange part. So she calls up her doctor, and she has to go through a screening. And the first stage is a screening with a nurse. And that nurse asks basic questions, how you feeling? You've been coughing, blah, 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 blah. And when it started, I guess I should back up a little bit. When I say she started with a cough, the main thing was she just felt tired. She was just sleeping a lot. But she does that a lot when she gets any sort of sick. That's kind of her way to heal. So she talks to that nurse, and the nurse says, yeah, we want to go ahead and get you screened. And she's like, I thought that's what I was doing here. Well, the doctor will call you in the morning. What's your temperature overnight? If it hits above 100.4, go to the emergency room. And the doctor will call you at 11:20 tomorrow. So yesterday morning, doctor calls. She goes through about an hour worth of screening. Now, it's not an hour's worth of questions. It's questions and then the doctor clickety-clacking into a computer, okay? And then so after about that hour, he goes, yes, I do think you need to go for COVID testing. And so, of course, heart sinks, and she's diabetic. She has had a bypass surgery. She has a defibrillator. She was born with hip dysplasia. She lived in a body cast for several years of her infant life. The girl's been through a lot. 2 years ago, she almost lost a toe due to we were moving and it got a blister, and that it didn't get infected, or it got infected, excuse me. But anyway, so they say, yep, we want you to go get a test. Now, we live in a fairly small town outside of Austin. We measure in miles, or in time in Texas. It's 50 miles. It's about 20 minutes from Austin. And so we figured that they would have us go to Austin or something. But the doctor said, I have to call and get you a scheduler. Not his office scheduler, guys. An official government scheduler. Okay. So that took about 45 minutes. And a lady calls and says, okay, we're going to schedule you. You need to go to the American Legion Hall in your town. We're like, American Legion Hall? Okay. And it was 2 hours away. Or not the hall, the appointment was 2 hours away. And so we wait around, and then we head off over there, head to the hall. Hall's empty, nothing in the hall. Well, back behind the American Legion Hall is the rodeo grounds for Bastrop. And so I pull around, and sure enough, there it is, straight out of a scene of every movie we've seen of the end of the world, from Walking Dead to Outbreak to Contagion. There's men in white hazmat suits running around. There's cops everywhere. There's a tent, or a canopy, I should say, not a tent. They got a big canopy, and down the sides, they've got it cordoned off. And so we pull up, and man, before you even get a few yards, or before you get in with, let's say, 30 yards of the cop car, they're already putting their hand out the cop window and telling you to stop. And so I stop, and then she just points, telling me to go down this other road. I was like, okay. So I take this other little road, go loop around. And I tried to record this, guys, but A, you're not supposed to be traveling with your phone or driving with your phone. And then B, I'm no good at that crap. I don't do selfies, and I don't do home videos all the time. I do them of my dogs, sometimes. And even that takes me 10 tries to get a picture. So I'm trying to record them, but we pull up to the second cop. Now, as we pull up, here comes an unmarked car racing towards us with his lights on from back Tent City. And their sign says, keep your windows up. And so he stops me probably about 20 foot from his cop car. He gets out. He's got on the mask. And through my window, he's like, what? And then finally I understood, after 2 more tries, that he wanted the email confirmation. So I had to take Brenda's phone, hold it up to the glass, and then her ID, and hold it up to the glass. They said, okay, set it down. He talks with the other cop for a minute, back and forth. And this kind of seems like a little bit longer than what it should. But then finally he, what? I understood, move forward, follow the signs, keep your windows up. But it took several tries. Anyway, we get going down the road, slow as hell. And we pull up to the tent. And there's 4 people there. They're all in the monkey suits, full face shields, looking like they're after Predator. And they guide me in, tell me when to stop. And then I'm still got my phone up, and I'm going back and forth, and I'm talking to myself since the thing's not recording. And they get over to Brenda's side. They tell her to roll down her window, and then they tell me immediately, you can't record. I'm like, well, why not? And then she goes, well, HIPAA laws. And I understood that. And so I was like, well, I'll just pause while y'all get her private information, and then I'll hit record again. So I went down to hit pause, and that's when I realized, well, dummy, you weren't recording the whole time. And so I just put the phone down, and they, again, ask her for her ID, date of birth, and I already see they got a test tube with her name on it. And so then they ask her if she knows what she's there for. They kind of giggle, making a little laugh. And then they go with a big long Q-tip, and they go up the left side first. And she's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. And what he does is he sticks it up there, and he goes, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, twisting it. And then he pulls it out, sticks the same Q-tip up the other nostril. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. Yeah, I see your face. That was exactly my thoughts. I was like, what?
They used the same swab for both nostrils? That's weird.
Very much so. That was my thinking exactly.
I mean, for me, all right, I'm admitting live that I do pick my nose once in a while. I mean, I wipe my finger before I go through to the next one,
Right. I mean,
hell?
I mean, I guess if it's up there, it's going to be on both sides, or they're not worried about cross contamination.
Well, okay, so they're jamming it all the way up, which I just can't even fathom. That sounds so miserable to me.
Well, and Brenda said that it's not as bad as they make it seem on TV. She said, they make it sound like they go up behind your eyeball and take a left, and it's not that way at all. She said the second one was a little more uncomfortable, and that could be just tighter sinuses or maybe she just had some swelling in there or whatnot. And so it wasn't too bad. And they got done. They said, would you like a tissue in case your eyes water? And she's like, no, I don't want nothing from you guys, And then they said, okay, you should hear something in 1 to 5 days. And I said, how long? And they said up to 5 days. And the doctor had said 1 to 2. And I'll get to another story here in a minute about our trip on the way home. But it really bothered me, especially the more I thought about it today, was that, Trump hasn't shown any signs. And I can understand. He's the leader of the free world. The man should be able to get tested. And if he farts wrong and he thinks he should be tested, the man should be tested. But Chris Cuomo of CNN, he was sick. He's quarantining himself to his basement. Okay, I can see him getting tested. He's out in the public a lot. He's in New York. But his wife and kids got tested, and they weren't showing any signs. All these ball players, basketball players, tons, entire teams got tested, and none of them were showing signs. They would not test me nor my mother-in-law because we're not showing signs. Yet we're in closed quarters with someone that they're suspecting. And this kind of goes to my point that I think the numbers are very underinflated, underreported. Because when I go and look, it says that we only have 12 cases in my county, and it's a big ass county. So big enough that they put us a COVID testing facility here. But if there's only 12, and we've been self-quarantining, only going to the grocery store, only went to H-E-B or Home Depot once to get some paint to paint the kitchen counters because, was so bored. She was so bored she wanted something to do. So we've been following the rules. She wore gloves. She wore masks. Before they were even saying wear one, I made her because of her health issues. And so if we did end up with it, if it comes back as positive in this little town with only 12 cases, I think it's going to be a lot more widespread than what we know. Meredith, you and I talked about this yesterday. I am of the very big opinion that since there is so many unknowns, not only are people carrying this around asymptomatic for a week or two before they start showing signs, I'm of the opinion that there's probably typhoid Marys running around there that are carriers and do not show a single sign ever. And so they're still going to work. They are going about their daily lives. They may be taking precautions and self-quarantining and stuff, but they're not ever going to feel sick because they have that inherent immunity. And we've seen this time and time and time again with varying things that have come after humanity, that some folks, for whatever reason, are hit harder, and then some folks just don't get hit at all. And what's discouraging to me is that we have a president who weeks ago said, if anybody wants a test, they can get one. And we all know it's bullshit when he said it. But here we are a month later, and I'm starting to show signs. I coughed so hard yesterday coming back from taking her that I had a head rush and rode off the road a little bit. She had to call my name. I've had several bad coughing fits, and I can feel congestion. Today, I woke up at my normal 7 o'clock and was still tired, and I was like, well, I'm going to take a little nap. I didn't wake up till noon, and Meredith and Alan and everybody are off doing all the work. And so it could be the starts of it. It could just be that I was stressed the hell out and, didn't sleep the night before because I was sleeping in my office. And so there's all these factors that, it could be. I'm leaning more towards the fact that it probably is, and I'm treating it that way. And this is the one thing that whether I have it or not, and whether Brenda has it or not, And whether you listeners, if any of you guys are tuned in, if you have it or not, we've got to treat it like we do. And we need to treat this like it is a super AIDS, folks. Every single one of you. If you're listening from my Facebook, then you are more than likely went to high school with me or around my age. You remember the AIDS epidemic, how scared everyone was. Didn't even want to be in the same damn room if somebody had AIDS.
Yeah.
Didn't damn sure weren't going to shake their hand. You weren't going to hug on them, and heaven forbid, if you even had the single inkling that they might be gay, you stayed away. And now we know, all of that was bullshit. But we can't believe what we're being told about this disease right now because nobody knows. Everyone is they're being armchair quarterbacks on this, whether they're pushing the hydrochloroquine or they're at first, man. I remember just a few weeks ago, there was a big thing that they were saying African Americans aren't getting this that bad. And Idris Elba came up, and he had gotten it. And he was like, folks, don't listen to this. You can get it now. 3-4 weeks later, they're saying, well, the African American community is getting hit really freaking hard. And so
I think it depends and it really depends on who you're listening to also, because I've heard a lot of different news reports and frankly, I've shut the news off. I've shut the news off because when it comes to fact-based versus opinion-based, I think there's a lot of muddy water out there, and people will latch on to whatever it is that their brain is telling them to I don't know, either perpetuate the panic in their brain, like the sky is falling, or hey, it's not so bad. It's almost like two sides. And I don't think that's political. I just think it's like how much of a maybe a hypochondriac you are, or whether or not, you're just kind of laid back and you're going, I just want to see what I see. So for me, I personally turn off the news, and, I do by default, just my lifestyle, I have social distancing,
right.
But my husband, he goes out, because he's in a job that requires him to be there, and he deals with the public, and he comes home, and so in a way I live dangerously because I don't self-distance from my husband. I still give him kisses when he gets home. We still snuggle and spend time together. So like you were saying, it's like super AIDS or whatever.
That's the way we need to treat it.
We have to treat it that way because I might be carrying it, but I'm asymptomatic. He might be, who knows? But the thing is, my personal footprint is very small. If I go to the grocery store, I'm only touching the things that I'm grabbing off the shelf. Okay. And I put it directly into my cart. If I go to the laundromat, I'm not touching the tables. I'm not touching the washing machine and the dryer unless I'm using it. And then the lady that works there, she's behind me and she's disinfecting everything after everybody touches whatever. Okay. So I leave my personal footprint fairly small. I go out for my walks. It's not like I'm going around licking people's mailboxes. Okay. I'm walking and I have social distancing by default. So these are these are the things. And I keep my house, you can't lick my floors, but who wants to? It's just one of those things. I have a lived-in house, but at the same time, I don't want to be spraying Lysol like crazy because who the hell knows what that's doing to your lungs? And my husband made a point about this yesterday. He's like, with everybody spraying all this Lysol and stuff like that, I guess nobody fucking cares about the ozone layer anymore. Seriously. So, so we're thinking about all of these things, but again, my personal circumstances is yes. If we're comparing it to AIDS, maybe I'm living a dangerous lifestyle because I don't wear a mask when I go out in public, but I do make sure that I wash my hands after I've been out in public, or maybe I'll take a shower if I feel like I've been around, people who have the cooties or whatever. But having said that, my personal circumstances, unlike yours, is I'm not dealing with people who have underlying medical conditions. Now, my personal behavior would be completely different if I was taking care of my mother-in-law. who
Right.
has several issues, or even my father-in-law or my mother, because they all have these underlying conditions. And I would feel terrible if I was living my regular lifestyle and I brought something to them. So, you know, again, it's one of those things where I don't have insurance, so I'm looking at it like, okay, well, I don't have a primary care physician. So if I'm showing signs and symptoms, I don't have anybody to call. And what do I do? So at this point, I'm doing my research and going, okay, based on what I've seen on the news and, the hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pak combination seems to be effective. It's like, well, you can't get that without a prescription. Okay, but what are they? They're anti-inflammatories. Okay, so I'm researching that and going, what can I do holistically to maybe help myself? I can still go out and buy zinc. I can, you look at the anti-inflammatory spices and seasonings, so I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, well, I've already had these in my diet. I already put cinnamon in just about everything. Turmeric, pepper, anything with capsaicin in it, for really spicy stuff. And then I'm looking at, okay, well, viruses don't like an alkaline environment. So I'm looking at that as far as holistically, like what will lessen the acidity in my body, in my system, and work towards being a more alkaline uh, environment. So that's what I'm looking at as far as myself, because I don't have these options unless it turns into an emergency, and then I have no choice but to call the ambulance or something,
Right.
or go to the ER. So, again, it's like one of those things where I'm aware of my personal circumstances, and I think that a lot of us are have the common sense to understand that and try to live as carefully as possible while this is all going on. Frankly, going back to your testing, I'm surprised that your county doesn't have the ability to do the quick testing, because there are.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Why is it taking 1 to 5 days for the testing out
Right,
here?
when there are tests that take 15 minutes.
Right. And that's the way that, they were pushing this, where you're going to be able to pull up to Walgreens. Hey, Vanita, you're going to be able to pull up to Walgreens or Walmart and get a test and know in just a few minutes. And that's not the case. We had to, go through a maze and, show ID and deal with the Darth Vader looking or the Stormtrooper looking guys.
But I
And
think that's by county or state or whatever it is. So, I mean, I would probably start calling your local government or your state representatives and go, what the hell is going on? Because we went through this system, and why is it taking my test 1 to 5 days?
exactly.
And maybe start demanding more from your local government, because, from the reports, and again, I just tune in at night just to get the overview, because I can't have this monsoon of just nonstop negative news.
Right.
I know it's bad. We all know it's bad.
Well, because of our job, one of my things is to watch the news. I have to stay on top of what's going on in the world. These days, thankfully, with Geek Insider, I get to do more of the entertainment side of things, and I don't have to follow politics and cryptocurrency and all of that stuff. And so that's been a nice thing. But I have too. I've leveled off of watching the politics. I don't watch the daily news briefings anymore. But when I do look through the news, I don't lean one way or the other. I don't watch, just Fox, and I don't watch just CNN or MSNBC or any of those. I do a lot of hodgepodge from everywhere. I check Al Jazeera, I check BBC. There's a couple of other overseas sites that I look at. And then I kind of take my truth somewhere in the middle. And that's why I'm kind of disturbed by the image that we're getting of that these tests are easy now. They're everywhere. Anyone can get them, and they're quick. And that's not the case at all. I'm living with someone who is showing signs of the COVID, and yes, we had to go and get her tested. We're
And you're
waiting.
start and you said you're starting to show signs as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is I don't have insurance. The I did until about a month and a half ago. And thankfully, I did at that time. But that company kind of screwed us on the insurance, and so now I don't have it. And so now I know if I come down with this, I'm left to my own devices. I might be able to get a prescription called in, especially if I go crawling it, doing the zombie walk into an ER. But my options are slim to none. But still having to pull up, go through all this stuff here in small town, and they do have it put off to the side. It's not like it's in the middle of town. And so you pull up, you get your test done, and then you drive off. Well, we needed to go get a prescription. And this was kind of funny. We go into HEB, and of course, the lines are long. We're in line. And we get up to the window finally, and the lady's giving us Z-Pack, and she's giving us some antibiotics and some steroids. And because the doctor wants to, until we get the results, he wants to address the high blood pressure, he wants to address the congestion and the fever. And so we've got all three. And so it just surprised me when they go to have me pay, they just open up the little drawer and expect me to put the debit card in there. Now, I have antibacterial soap, but I just turned to him and I said, ladies, she did just have to go get tested for COVID. And oh boy, it was like it was like I had told them that she, I don't know. It was funny. It was like it was a nuclear device, is what it was. It was like it was radioactive. Because she calls the pharmacist over there. Pharmacist goes and gloves up, masks up. When the card comes in, they're holding it, and she's like this, moving slow, and goes over, runs it, and gives us our receipt. She puts it in the card in the plastic bag, and then of course when they hand us stuff, we wash our hands, we wiped everything else down, and but then we go over to Starbucks, and again, this kind of just showed me how folks aren't taking this so serious, is because we get up to the window and the girl, she's young, probably 16, 17 years old, and she's wearing a mask, and she goes, oh, look, we can rob a bank together, because I had on my mask. And which mine looks a little different than most everybody else's. But so I just kind of laughed. And when she goes to have me pay, she just reaches out for the card. And I said, "What? Can you not slide it out here?" And she goes, "Oh," and then just gives me a wireless one that is meant for that, and holds it out. And so I slide the card in, pull it. I didn't touch anything. She didn't touch anything of mine. And that's the way she should have done it in the first place. But to go back to the testing itself, like I said, it's 1 to 5 freaking days. So we, hadn't heard anything all day. It's 4:40. Not going to hear anything from the doctor today. So we get to stew for another 24 or 12 hours at a minimum, or 15 hours, whatever. But pulling up to that, and then having the cops just stick their arms out the window and stuff. I mean, they're barely rolling down their windows. Hey, go down that way. So they're nervous. I guess I would be too, because everybody coming around there thinks they have COVID. So I think I would be a little precautious as well.
And I want to speak to that a little bit too, because this was something that we mentioned yesterday, and I have questions. What I said yesterday was to the point of, like, if let's just say you tested positive for COVID and you got into a terrible accident and died. Are they attributing it to COVID?
No.
Or the accident? Because let me tell you something. The things that I've actually seen on the news is, okay, like, where did all the heart attacks go?
Right.
Where did all of these, maybe these cancer deaths go? And they're all going under the COVID-19 if they happen to test positive. And I don't know if that's true. Okay,
Right.
I'm just going to put this out there. I don't know if it's true. This is just what I've heard and what I've read. And if it is true, why would they do that? So there's a lot of stuff that I have questions of, and again, it's one of these conversations that I've had with my husband, where he said it's either really being blown out of proportion, where we've just got a worldwide panic and people are overreacting, because the deaths really worldwide aren't worse at this point. Okay, they're not worse than normal flu season. Having said that, I'm not saying that it's not terrible, because the scary part is how contagious it is, right?
Right.
So they're either really blowing it out of proportion, or it's really a lot worse than we think and know, and they're just not telling us something.
Well,
Um,
I was going to make 2 points on this. One, I read yesterday, I do a lot of reading, where I read some of the same stuff that you did, that some deaths could be being attributed to COVID that aren't actually attributed to it. But then I've also seen reports from coroners who are saying that they have people that have died that were not tested, and they could tell you if they smoked marijuana legally, but they cannot tell you if they died from COVID, because they're not allowing testing on deceased. It's only for the living. And so they're worried that the numbers are being underreported that way. Now, one big thing that bothers me is that as soon as this truck pulled up in New York, the refrigerator truck, I had flashbacks to Katrina. I had a personal friend who's a truck driver. He's unfortunately has passed on now, or I would bring him on about this. He was there after Katrina with a cleanup, and he says that the numbers there were extraordinarily underreported. He said they were taking out bodies by the refrigerated truckload, and it haunted him. It haunted him until the day he died. He said that he knows personally he trucked out, at least three-quarters of the numbers that they reported. And so, or something to that effect. In other words, there was a hell of a lot more bodies than what they were counting. And like I've said, with there only supposedly being a dozen cases in my county, and we live in the woods, folks, and we buttoned down weeks before anybody else started saying anything. We could have buttoned down more, but we buttoned down pretty good. And so if we have it and they're only testing the people that showing major signs, not even the light signs, I'm afraid that it is a lot more widespread. Now that also means there's good news on this. Like Meredith and I discussed the other day, there was a guy, a head of a hospital, that said that they had like 300 people a day walking out of there that had recovered from COVID. And that's numbers, that the mainstream media is not reporting. They're not talking about how many people are getting up and walking away, and that these hospitals are cheering every day they're lining the halls and cheering these people as they leave. I've seen that at another hospital. And so we're not hearing those good numbers. All we are is getting pounded and pounded and pounded with, how many deaths. And yesterday was the most number of deaths ever for us yet. And so I definitely don't believe any of the main crap that we're being told from either side. Do I believe, that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? Nope. Do I believe that, the world's going to be back open up at the beginning of May? Nope. But do I think that it's going to be the millions and millions? I don't know, man. I'm not seeing that right now, unless we start seeing a lot of spikes in other cities and major cities. But what worries me is just the access to the testing and the seemingly the rich over the poor kind of thing on the access to the testing. You would think that I should be one of the first ones to be tested in this situation, with Brenda getting tested, me being in the car with her. They should have went ahead and did the test then.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't. I mean, just by default, because of
Right.
You're in the same household. Why wouldn't you?
And okay, well, he's not showing any signs. Okay, great. Maybe I always have a cough and I'm just attributing it to that, but I'm still going to the grocery store for the family. I'm going, to to the convenience store to get my snuff, and I may throw on a mask, but maybe I don't wear gloves. Maybe I'm not washing my hands all that much. I might touch my face a million times in a day before I go in there. And so, just by default, like you said, they should have tested me, or at least given me uh, uh, advice or directions. Sir, since you have been in close contact with her, you should do the following. They didn't say nothing, nothing at all.
Here's the other thing that's been mystifying to me. So they say that it could be, there's an incubation period, and nobody really knows whether it's 14 days or 21 days. Nobody really knows how long this could be in your body, asymptomatic, and that you are contagious, that you are, in fact, typhoid Mary at this point, right?
Right, right.
So, I mean, in that period of time, most people don't remember what they did yesterday, or, like what they touched, where they were, what they were in contact with. Now, talk about going back, let's just say 21 days. It's like, well, who was I in the room with?
Right.
What did I touch? What surfaces and things like this. So, I mean, it's just so, there's just so much unknown on like where it could possibly come from, and where you might have gotten it from, and then there are all these theories like, oh, well, it could be up to, it could be in the air for up to 27 feet from a sneeze. It's like, well, who the hell is sneezing out into the open anyway, up and out,
Right.
Where you're sneezing and it's going out 27 feet. No, again, my husband and I, we've had these talks because he's out in the public, and I go again in my small footprint. And when it comes to sneezing, they say sneeze into your elbow. I know people who sneeze down and into their shirt. Having been in food service, we sneeze down. We sneeze down, pointed to the floor, because that it goes down to the floor, it kind of stays there, and then the mopping crew comes in and cleans it up with the with the bleach or the floor cleaner and stuff. Whereas if you're in food service, you don't want to be sneezing into your elbow because it's still above where you're taking care of food. So I mean, that makes sense. If you're going to sneeze, if you have to sneeze downward and at the floor. Don't sneeze into your elbow, because it's stupid. You sneeze into your elbow and then they say, well, don't shake hands, do an elbow bump. Really? Come on, people. Let's use let's use your brain a little bit here.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the first thing that I started laughing about when they were saying do elbow bumps. And I was like, but wait, they've been telling us for years to sneeze into our elbow.
Yeah, so, I don't do that. And I don't. I'm a little bit OCD with my hands anyway, because when it comes to the hand sanitizer, every time I've used it, I just don't like the feel of it. So I go wash my hands. So I'm washing my hands anyway. So I do that constantly. I do it when I'm prepping food. Again, maybe it's food service that I'm used to, because I don't want the cross contamination from my hands. So I do that anyway. I have rosacea, so I rarely touch my face unless I absolutely have to. So these are all things that I've personally done anyway. And knock wood, I've been healthy. Again, I know my body, and if I'm feeling crappy right now, it's because of allergies and the pollen and everything, and it's springtime and the wind is blowing and we haven't really gotten a lot of rain. So it's particularly miserable for me. But again, I'm not feeling that, like they say that a quick test just to see your lung capacity is to take a really deep breath and suck in as much air as you can and hold it for like 10 to 20 seconds. And if you don't have a coughing fit, your lungs are probably fine, because that's what this COVID is hitting. It's hitting your lungs. It's hitting, all of those areas and your soft tissue where, it's causing that congestion and things like that. So I get, that for me is a quick test. And I do that every night because, again, with the pollen, the dust, the dander, I have dogs, the other day I sucked in, I think it was a fur ball, and I wanted to die. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I can't go out in public and start coughing like this, knowing that it's maybe a piece of dog fur that I sucked in, or, those dandelions, the little seeds that that are floating in the air. And I sucked in one of those when I was walking. Oh my God. And I was like bright red because I was holding on to my breath until I couldn't, until I didn't want to cough. Because
the neighbors, you'd wake up and your doors are all boarded closed.
Yeah, exactly.
The driveway's blocked.
Not that, I swear it's not that. So it's like all of this, it's this mindset right now that is concerning to me, because a lot of people, again, I think we're turning ourselves into hypochondriacs when we should know better, especially if we're kind of healthy. And we know that this is allergy season, or we know what we feel like when we're not feeling well. I mean, I woke up, again, allergy season, I had crusty eyes and things like that. And I'm not, for the haters out there, I'm not downplaying this at all. There are a lot of people who are suffering. There are a lot of people who died. And I send out thoughts and prayers to them and their families, for anybody who's going through this. These are hard times. But for the rest of us, again, if we, and this goes to another unknown, if you tested positive for it and then you recovered, all right, supposedly you have an immunity, but nobody really knows, because who knows, maybe a month, right, and maybe a couple months down the road, we're dealing with COVID-20.
Right.
So it's going to mutate. That's what these viruses do. They mutate. I'm like, are we going to shut down every single time? There's got to be other ways that we can handle this without shutting down everything.
But the thing is, Meredith, is the countries that did get the handles on it early are the ones that did a complete shutdown. But they did a complete shutdown, not the pansy one, the 3/4 of the way ones we did.
But see, this is why that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, okay, if it worked, great. But for the complete shutdown, that's fine and good. But again, with the typhoid Marys that are out there, right. I mean, if this thing is living and breathing somewhere in us, then what's to say that once the country opens up again, that they're not reinfecting people?
Right. And we would just have to cross that bridge when we get there. But
right, I mean, because it could be perpetual.
It could, and God, I hope not. But circling back around to the whole thing, what I started the show for, as I touch my face more and more, as everybody can say,
don't do that,
right? Well, when you grow a beard, that's the one thing it's supposed to be for, is touching and just stroking. But I'm supposed to keep my hands off my face, but. So to kind of circle back around, because I know we've had some people come in kind of late into the show, and we've had others come and go. What happened, folks, was that my wife had started showing some signs of possibly having COVID. And so after a couple of days of it, just assuming that it was allergies, just that it was a normal thing, she did start spiking a fever the other day, not real high. And then another thing that was kind of made us think that this might not be COVID was that she took some ibuprofen, and it brought down the fever, and so it brought it down quite significantly. And so then the next morning, though, it started going back up. She was running like a 99.7, 99.4, 99.7. But she went through the testing screening with a nurse, and then they asked her some questions, and then the next morning the doctor called and he asked her some questions, and he pumped it all into the computer. And I guess 2020 said, yes, Dave, you do need to go to the hospital, or you do need to go test. And so they said, you're going to go get tested. And we thought that we would have to go to Austin or somewhere fairly not close. But they actually had a center set up in our little town. And so if you're from Bastrop, guys, over in the rodeo arena area, the rodeo grounds, there is a COVID testing facility. Do not try to go in. You can cruise around where the cops are, but if you pull up to that cop, just be prepared, because they will stop you. They tell you to keep your windows rolled up. They come up, they're in the mask, and then they will ask you, do you have an appointment? And you say yes, and then they want a confirmation of the appointment. So you have to have that on your phone or your device. You hold it up with your ID to the window. Another cop comes zooming up there like Starsky and Hutch, They talk back and forth, and then once they do confirm that you're you and that you do have this set appointment, then they wave you on through, and it's all barred off. It's the rodeo grounds, and so they got little spots here and there. It's for you to set up your livestock and everything. So it's the perfect spot. Now that I think about it, they're having the cattle go down the way. But so you go down, and they got a big tent set up, and there's like 4 people in there, and they're all wearing the suits straight out of frickin' all the movies you've seen, guys. Every Contagion movie, Breakout, Outbreak, all of that. They're all in the hazmat suits. They got on the face shields, and then a shield on under it, and then a mask. So these people were being serious. They have you stop. They tell you can't film while they're asking the patient questions, which is understandable. And then they asked her a couple of questions, and they were really nice, guys. And I don't know if these were local medical professionals. I don't know if these were government agency people. I don't know. I didn't ask. But they were really nice. And when we got, they stuck a big, long Q-tip up her nose, and they didn't go that far. It was, I'd probably stick my finger up further there sometimes. But they went up her nose. They counted 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Pulled it out, stuck it up the other side, did the same thing, pulled it out, and then they sent it off for testing. And we're supposed to know in 1 to 5 business days. It's been 26 hours now. We haven't heard anything yet. And but that goes to show another thing. No matter where you're at right now, whether you're hearing about testing or not, it could be going on around you. I had heard nothing that there was a testing facility in my town, and we got our ear kind of to the ground. We know a lot of gossips. We know a lot of people in town, and I didn't hear anything about this at all. But it's just interesting to know that it is here in town, that it is surreal. It's very surreal to pull up and feel like you're pulling onto the set, directly onto the set of one of those movies. And I really wanted to get it recorded. When I get my new phone that our boss is sending, then hopefully I'll be able to record some better stuff. But hopefully none of you have to go through this. But if you're listening, folks, whether you've got somebody that has it or you don't, whether you are an ardent Trump supporter or you're an ardent hater, we've got to do our part. This isn't a hoax. It's not a joke. People have said, oh, what about the 17,000 that died from H1N1? Well, that was over a year. We're about to surpass those numbers in just a couple of months. And hang on just a second. Alexa was giving me an alarm.
Oh.
I had to tell
Well,
her.
I mean, I'm just really hoping that it comes back negative, and for you too. I see you almost every day, and I could see that your eyes are a little bit swollen. But, I mean, is that because you didn't get some sleep? And we don't want to be to a point where we talk ourselves sick.
Right. Right, exactly.
And it's to be a self-fulfilling prophecy is not something that we want to do. So, just the and I'm on you all the time, Matt. I'm like, you better, eat, sleep,
right,
drink plenty of fluids, maybe lay off the whiskey a little bit. I don't know.
I don't touch the whiskey all that much. I bought a bottle 2 weeks ago. I still got a shot in there. And,
still a shot.
Where I got to get better at.
I'm out. I need some before Comic Con, before our virtual con.
Yeah, I'm getting some before VC. I gotta start substituting a water for some of my Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
I drink Dr. Pepper constantly, and I'm not good at drinking water at all. And I know that's one thing I've got to do. But speaking, because you said virtual con, guys, just in case you hadn't heard, this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, all day long, streaming Geek Out Virtual Con. We have got guests from all over, man. We've got guests from directors and actors and screenwriters and comic book writers and comic book artists. We've got a band, members of a band that's got a new CD coming out. Good God, Athena Finger, the granddaughter of Bill Finger, one of the creators of Batman. We've got is he called the real Aquaman?
The true Aquaman,
Rick
Stafford.
Yeah, mm-hmm. True Aquaman. It goes on and on. And not only that, not only is it going to be back-to-back interviews with cool people, just like if you were at a real Comic-Con, then we're also giving out prizes. We have got prizes that, man, I might just have to make a fake name and come in and win some of these myself. Oh, damn it. I shouldn't have said that. Now Meredith will be on to me. Because we've got a backpack, a gaming backpack for gamers. We got a freaking autographed Doctor Who photo, man.
I know a few people who want that.
Oh, I already had
badly.
somebody. I've had people offer bribes for that.
Yeah.
And just,
I mean, we've got Mobile Edge, we've got Q, we've got Athena Finger coming with Rick Stafford. We've got who are some of our special guests? We've got oh my gosh! Well, check out the website here,
yep.
geekoutvc.com. That's got our special guests. We are getting ready to post the schedule so people know when to tune in. We've got all kinds of panels. We've got cosplayers coming in, and we've got different alleys, and maybe some of them will pop in during the panels. And I don't know. We're trying to do this feel of a con while we're live streaming. So we're going to do our best. It's the first time we've ever done it. So we expect that there are going to be some hiccups, and but we're going to try and make it as smooth as possible. And we've got it as organized as best as we can.
Exactly.
But it's going to be a lot of fun. And the door prizes are really cool. But you have to be there. You have to be part of the live audience in order to get it. We're going to do random drawings throughout the entire weekend.
Yep. And the other thing is if you are unlike me and you can remember what you were going to talk about, do this every single time, Meredith. I start listening and then I forget what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, it's totally not your fault. I needed to start taking little notes here so that I cover all that stuff. But, I know what I was going to say. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. If you missed the bulk of this show and you want to hear the beginning of it, it's going to be available on our podcast later this week. You can find all of our podcasts wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can start from the beginning and work your way up from some of our older shows, stuff that was before Meredith and I took over. And then there's a lot of interviews on there that we've done over the past 2 months. We've got a lot more planned after VC. Right now, things are kind of slow because we are working on Virtual Con. Don't miss it also, guys. Our friends over at nsclivetv.com, they have next weekend, the weekend after ours, they are having
CyberCon. So that's that's a Hanging with Web show, HWWS, and nsclivetv.com. We've got a lot of people who are attending that. So CyberCon the following week. Let me look at my calendar real quick because Geek Out Virtual Con, that's ours. We're April 11th through 12th. That's this coming weekend. And the following weekend, if you did the math here, it would be, I actually think they're doing it from the 17th through the 19th. It's going to be something like a 52-hour event, which I think is kind of crazy. But we're actually involved. We're going to be doing some live streaming ourselves through them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a really busy live streaming weekend for the next 2 weekends. It's going to be a lot of fun. So everybody needs to tune in.
Yep. Don't miss out, everybody. Y'all stay safe and healthy out there. Practice safe sex with everybody. And I mean, safe sex everywhere, not just intercourse. Your intercourse with the rest of the world. Don't walk out there with a condom on, though.
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be funny if we were all like in our own personal bubble, like those hamster wheels, those hamster bubbles,
right?
If we're all in one.
Now I might just have to show up to VC like that. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. Oh, and that's the other thing. This is the first Wednesday show. I will be doing this every week, Wednesday, same time, 4:00 Central, 5:00 Eastern. It's just, I'm going to come up with a better name, but it's going to be kind of the freaky and the geeky. The first show, we're going to talk about the Georgia Guidestones. Then we're going to talk about the Mandela effect and multiple universes. And all that freaky kind of geeky stuff that I like. And so join me every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern. And then it'll be on the podcast. Meredith's going to let me know what day of the week it'll be available each and every week on the podcast.
Yep. Lady Geek Live is Sunday at 5 Eastern. So tune in for that too.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all enjoy. See you this weekend.